Welcome back to another episode of the Read Pile. Today I'm going to be looking at some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic books. Specifically, these are reprints by IDW of the 1987 Archie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures comic books. The Archie run, of course, was the more child-friendly version of the Ninja Turtles that you would see in the Saturday morning cartoon show as well. And these first few volumes here actually reflect that pretty much spot on, and I will get to that in a moment. The fun part is that these ran at the same time as Mirage, who was still running their own more adult Ninja Turtle comic books. So that was kind of fun and confusing for parents and kids alike sometimes, going to the comic book shop and picking up some Ninja Turtles books and thinking they got the next one and seeing something completely different and crazy and wondering what the hell is going on. Now, as I mentioned, these are based around the Saturday morning cartoon show of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1987. Specifically, these first two volumes actually cover the first episodes of the show almost scene for scene, and in some places word for word, although not exactly. A lot of it's kind of truncated to fit into the book. But needless to say, these first two volumes, if you've seen the original cartoon show and remember them, then you know exactly what's in both of these books already. So that's kind of what you're getting. Now, the fun thing is after these first two books, the comic book goes off in its own direction. Completely different from the cartoon show, introduces new characters, does a whole bunch of new things, and goes in a completely separate direction and is its own universe from there on. But these first two volumes, you just kind of got to get through them. So the first one here, this is actually the entire first season of the TV show, all 5 episodes. And they put it into one miniseries, and it was originally a 3-issue miniseries from Archie Comics, and it was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, just like this one. I don't know why that's not on this cover, but the story itself, it was called Heroes in a Half Shell, as you can see inside here. Each chapter started with the Heroes in a Half Shell. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, but starts exactly the same with, well, not exactly the same. The actual cartoon starts out with Bebop and Rocksteady and their gang of hooligans smashing up some cars and stuff, kind of like Street Fighter style. And then it gets to April talking about all these recent robberies. And from there on, pretty much everything that happens is nearly the same. Some parts make April seem a bit more heroic. For example, this scene here, she throws the camera super hardcore and smashes Rocksteady right in the face with it. Well, in the actual episode of the show, she kind of just like tosses the camera to him and he catches it and sort of looks up at her confused, like, why did you give this to me? I don't know, whatever. And then April runs off, and in the episode of the cartoon, she trips and falls down, sees the sewer grate, and effortlessly slips through it and goes down in the sewer to get away. Here, for whatever reason, they decide to make fun of April's weight, which there's nothing wrong with, but they have to have something about her putting on weight, O'Neill. Like, why was that necessary? I don't get that. There are things like that in some places in this book, just strange, like cynical, negative type feeling things that are just kind of like stuck in here from time to time that weren't in the actual TV episodes. I actually did watch the whole first season of the TV show just to make sure it matched up with this book, and it does. Pretty much scene for scene. The only thing it's missing is a lot of the extra characters, you know, like the side characters in movies. They would be literally extras. So when they run into people in the street and there's like a one-liner comment, someone makes a comment about their appearance or something, or a lot of the stuff between April and her bosses at the news station and April and her news crew, a lot of that stuff is cut out of this book. It's just a lot of basically just Turtles and April and Turtles and Shredder, Turtles Hamato Yoshi, Shredder, Hamato Yoshi, all this stuff with those main characters. Everything else gets kind of left to the side just for the sake of getting through the whole story in 3 issues of a comic book that were all about 30 pages each. And for some reason, Krang is all white instead of the traditional red underpants with yellow frame around Krang's body. I actually kind of like this better. It doesn't look as goofy as the underpants version of Krang. Never quite got that, why a big robot body had that. There's a lot about that whole scene that didn't make sense. Like, it was just a robot vehicle suit, and they had to put Krang in it and then zap it with electricity like Frankenstein. Here's the original covers. That's the 3rd one. This is the 2nd one. This is the 1st one right there. Yeah, so it was a 3-issue miniseries, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures. And it was from Archie Comics. And I had all of these as a kid. I had all 3 issues. I had one full book, basically like this, except you know, from the late 80s or early 90s, probably the very late 80s, because it also came with a yellow cassette tape that you could put in your tape player, and it played along basically all the audio from the show that matched up with what was in the book. And I think they just had the actors from the show do the whole thing again. I don't know, it was weird because it was, some parts are the same, some parts are different, but it was the whole thing as basically an audiobook with sound effects, and it was really cool. This existed in so many forms when it came out, because Turtles just like took over the whole planet. It was like when Power Rangers came out, if any of you guys remember that stuff. Turtles was like the same way. It was just Turtle Mania everywhere. Once they came out, it was like unstoppable. The toys, the shows, the cartoon, the comics, even like this, everything. And that's why it branched out and kept going. So the way IDW did this is they originally put this guy out, I believe, on the 25th anniversary of the show debuting, and it was a different size. There's actually two versions of this. There's this one, and then there's one that has a little badge on it that says 25th anniversary. They're two different sizes. I think that one's actually smaller than this, and this one, as you can see, is actually not even the same size as this book entirely. It's a little bit smaller. So that's a little bit strange for the shelf, and it's just like stapled down the side rather than with a spine and glue. Anyway, so this is issues 1 through 3, which is kind of strange because then it starts over again with issue number 1 in this. Now this is technically, when IDW reprinted this, this is what they count as volume 1 because it's, you know, the start of the story again. So it's volume 1. Which is weird because, again, it's continuing from where this left off. So it kind of references stuff from this, and it's not actually volume 1. This should totally be volume 2. I don't quite get why it's numbered that way. I kind of wish they actually reprinted it again as volume 0 or something in this same style, so I had it the same on the shelf just for how my eye sees it. It would look a lot nicer. If IDW prints it, I'll buy it. So this volume picks up with season 2 of the cartoon, the first few episodes of that. And it's basically the first 2 stories. So the first episode was Return to the Shredder, and then the next one was The Incredible Shrinking Turtles. This one, you know, Shredder comes back from Dimension X and tries to trick everyone into not liking the Turtles by making a fake gang of humans in sweatsuits and masks who people mistake for Ninja Turtles, because I guess people are really dumb. And this one has an alien that crashes to Earth, like super straight up, like ripped out of E.T. style, or Green Lantern. And he's got these crystals that follow the Earth that all have different abilities and powers, and he tells the Turtles they have to collect them and put them all together before they fall into the wrong hands. So of course Shredder, you know, is wanting to get those. And we start out with the same artist again, who worked on the previous one, and that is Dave Garcia, right there. Art and letters by Dave Garcia. And I'm not a huge fan of the style. Like, these pages are all kind of the same. Like, you can see there's like 6 and straight down the middle, 1 straight down the middle. So it's almost like he had a couple of stencils for how to make generic comic pages, and that's, the whole thing just feels very kind of generic, and like this artist is not very familiar with doing action scenes. Everything's very, very even more stylized and cartoony looking than the cartoon show was, so it just looks very strange. But the Turtles themselves oftentimes kind of look like a mixture of how they look on the cartoon and a mixture of how they look in the Mirage books. So it's very, very weird style mashup. Sometimes the humans look a little more realistic, like sometimes they look a little more characterized. I don't know, it's very strange. Like here, look at that guy, straight up like little cartoon face guy. But then back here, these guys are all like super detailed face, like all good expressions and whatnot. This is very, I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan with the very first artist, Dave Garcia. After that though, it switches over, and he's only doing the inks once it gets to this point. And that's where Ken Mitroni takes over. And it gets a little more cartoon stylized, but that kind of matches how the show looked a bit more and the attitude of these turtles. And it was just a little more consistent though. They had a little bit better expressions on their faces. The action was a bit better drawn. The panels were a bit better, a little more imaginative. So just the whole thing starts to get a little bit better at the end of this. So it's like the art starts to improve, and then after this, the stories move on and we get a whole new universe, like I said. So after season 1 and part of season 2 of the cartoon, we get to move on to bigger and better things, and I can't wait to get to that because I remember these, watching them, and I remember them, reading them. I want to get to the stuff that I didn't get to read all of because I never got all those comic books as a kid. I have the entire collection of all of these reprinted, including the section of 5 or 6 issues that they did not reprint, and I will explain why they didn't reprint those when we get to that section. It's a interesting story, and I still have to kind of figure out how to tell it without unpleasantness. That's all I'll say. Anyway, if you like Ninja Turtles, if you want to kind of see some of their very early history in one of the iterations that most people are the most familiar with, check out these comics. It was really cool that Archie was able to have all these pages available still, and that IDW was able to reprint them all. There's some information in the back of some of these books and some special thanks and some things about, how they were able to get these pages and whatnot and do them all over again. It sounded like kind of an ordeal, and I'm glad they were able to do it because it'd be pretty tough trying to collect all these individually on eBay. Very costly. Even these, for the most part, they started reprinting, I believe, in 2012. And went for the next few years after that until they finished the entirety of it. It's 16 or 17 volumes worth of these. So I've got a couple videos left for you guys. It should be a pretty cool journey. There's a couple of story plot points I do remember that I don't ever remember seeing conclusions to. So I'm going to be looking very much forward to seeing those stories finished for the first time, and basically just seeing how the entire series ended. I never saw how it ended and how it went back over to Image Comics. I do have all of the Image Comics as well. That's who got the license after Archie was done with it. And that one, that'll be interesting, let me tell you. We're not even going to get into spoilers on that one because the Image Comics Ninja Turtles, let me tell you, it's kind of like a fever dream, basically. So again, we'll get to that when we get to that. In the meantime, if you like Ninja Turtles and you like vintage retro stuff and you don't mind some kind of kiddie volumes that started out or until it gets more serious moving forward, pick these bad boys up and jump right in. Otherwise, there are, decades upon decades of Ninja Turtles books to pick up on. And the current IDW wave of comics is really good. The art is fantastic, and the storyline overall has been really cool, because it basically incorporated things from every different version of the Ninja Turtles from the very beginning into this one universe. So like characters from each one of these universes, situations, settings, plots, all sorts of things from every different one have all been weaved into this singular IDW Ninja Turtles universe. And again, if you're a fan of the Ninja Turtles and you haven't checked any of that stuff out yet, do yourself a favor and jump in as soon as possible. Until next time, thanks for watching. And go Green Machine.